there are lots of other things that we do where we are keeping ourselves busy. Like, for example, futzing around with the design on our website. Unless you are in a very particular niche, like where people expect your website to be beautiful. Unless you're in one of those niches, you know how much of a difference it makes whether, someone lands on your page and says, wow, this is beautiful? None. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klinck. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 136 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klinck, and I'm excited for today's episode because I'm going to be talking about something that's pretty darn important and that you need to be thinking about as an entrepreneur. And I'm hoping that the way I'm going to describe this will really resonate with you because it's something that took me forever to get. So, what I'm going to talk about here is that you need to stop focusing so much on being efficient and start focusing on being effective. And that's an important distinction. And I'm going to talk about it in a second, and I'm going to kind of dive deep, explain what I mean, what those words mean, etc. But what I want you to understand is when I finally got this concept, it helped me to demystify something that my coach, James Wedmore, had been talking about a lot. See, James talks about this concept that if you really want to have a bigger impact, and if you really want to make more money, do less. And that never made sense to me, right? Because you think about it and you're like, but there's so many things to do as an online entrepreneur, right? I've got my social media, my content, my list building, my this, my that, my funnels, and you just go down the list and there are so many things. And so you're like, how in the world can I do less? And how in the world is that going to make me have more impact? And how is that going to allow me to make more money? Well, that only made sense to me when I got this concept that too many of us are too focused on being efficient and not focused enough on being effective. And I want to talk about what that means. So, efficient or being efficient has to do with how many things you get done within a time period, right? It's knocking things off. It's like boom, 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 boom. I'm getting stuff done, baby. But being effective isn't a measure of how many things you do or how fast you do them. It's a measure of how much you're moving the ball forward in your business, or how much you're moving the needle if you don't like the ball analogy. And that distinction, basically being effective, is about doing the right things in your business, not doing more things in your business. And that's kind of the breakthrough that you need to make, because the reality is that most of us in the online space, especially when we're starting out, we're doing a lot of stuff that has zero impact on our business. And you know what? Maybe you're sitting and saying, no, I don't do that. But I guarantee you do. And it's the stuff that we tell ourselves is important, but it's not important. And again, maybe it makes some marginal difference. But I will see people talk about all kinds of different things that I look at it and I say, okay, Like, I hear people talk about how they create a piece of content and then they repurpose it to 18 different social media sites and to YouTube and to this and to that and the other and bloom, bloom. And I'm like, okay, well, you're being pretty efficient, but does any of that matter? And again, a lot of those people, they're so focused on the process of doing all of that they don't step back and say, am I creating the right content in the first place? And would my time be better spent doing something else other than repurposing it to 18 different places? And again, you have to ask yourself that question. I can't answer it for you and your business, but I can tell you that, a lot of the stuff that people do of trying to be everywhere is counterproductive. And so again, I will make a very clear example of this in the context of social media. So most of us have heard the concept that one of the ways, especially when you're starting out, that you can kind of build a following is if your audience is on Facebook, to go on Facebook and join groups where your like Facebook groups where your audience is and participate and post and ask questions and do things like that. Okay. And so we hear all that advice. And a lot of people were actually teaching to go and, post in 50 different groups. And, people are doing that. They're being really efficient, right? Because they post the exact same thing or small variations of things in 50 different groups. And so they can knock it out quick. But they're not being effective. You know what an effective strategy is? Don't be in 50 groups, be in 3. Don't try to be everywhere and only be there a little bit. Try to be a couple of places and be there all the frickin' time. Because you know what? Especially when you're starting out, if you can become the person in a Facebook group with 3,000 to 5,000 people in it who are kind of all your target audience and you're kind of become the person about your topic in there, that's going to do a lot more good than someone who than going into 50 groups and just posting every once in a while and people are like, who is this person? See, that is a very concrete example of efficiency versus effectiveness. Like people look at me and they're like, especially early on, they're like, man, you spent so much time on social media and in these like 3 or 4 different Facebook groups. I'm like, yeah. And you know what? Now, years later, I'm still getting leads every single day from those groups. That's effectiveness. And there are lots of other things that we do where we are keeping ourselves busy. Like, for example, futzing around with the design on our website. Unless you are in a very particular niche, like if you're in the wedding niche, okay, or if you're in the photography niche, or if you're in like a certain niche where people expect your website to be beautiful. Unless you're in one of those niches, you know how much of a difference it makes whether someone lands on your page and says, wow, this is beautiful? None. I mean, it can't be ugly. It can't be hard to read. It can't be something where it's impossible to actually read the text because you put it on top of, images without a shadow box so you can't even, distinguish things. But the reality is that how pretty your website is not going to move the needle. And I was thinking about this because in a group I'm in recently, someone was asking, they had a slide deck for a presentation, a webinar they were doing that they had just kind of created the raw like copy on blank white slides and they wanted to get it designed. And so they were, luckily they weren't going to, spend their time on it, but they were going to spend money. They were going to go and spend $1,000. They were getting quotes from people on like, I don't know where they were getting these designers to kind of turn around quickly and make this beautiful slide deck. And everybody, not everybody, but most of us in the group said, no, God, no, don't do that. I mean, if you want to pay $100, fine, but you can go just put it into a template somewhere and you're fine. It is not something that makes a difference. Because I don't know about you, but like if a slide deck in a webinar is really ugly and distracts, okay. But for the most part, I don't care how pretty your slide decks are. I care about how good your information is. And if you give me good information, that's what's going to make me decide to buy. If you have your copy and your messaging nailed, that's what's going to make me buy. And I'm going to talk about social media here for a second because this is something that I think is worth talking about. For the most part, a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs they're not looking at social media in the right way. They're being effective but not efficient. Because they're thinking, okay, well, I just need to post this many times. I need to do that. And I can use it as a megaphone and I can do that. And I can repurpose content and blah, blah, blah. Well, social media, if you want to really be effective on social media, it's not about like blaring your message to the world. It's about engaging with people. It's about taking the time when you post something, if someone responds to it, you go and you talk to them and you respond. It's about taking the time to connect and engage with human beings as humans. Now, if you will do that, it's going to do you a heck of a lot more good than spending a bunch of time on Canva or some other design thing trying to make really beautiful, paintings. And Instagram, I think, is the perfect example of this, where people will spend ungodly sums of time trying to create the most beautiful, I'm blank on the word, but the beautiful, where someone goes to their page and sees it. You know how many people do that? Not a lot. Most people will see one of your posts and be like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to follow this person. Or they'll see you engaging on someone else's post and say, oh, this person seems to be like somebody I like. I'm going to follow them. That is much more important than anything else you could be doing on social media. And yet that's not what most people are doing. Most people are doing set it and forget it. I just post stuff and I set it to post and that's it. So again, they're being efficient, but they're not being very effective. So what I would encourage you to do is track your time for a while and figure out what you do. And then ask yourself honestly and critically, is this actually moving my business forward? Or am I doing it because maybe I heard someone else say I should do it? Or because it seems like something that's a good idea, or because it's, it's work that I can do. And this is where a lot of us end up. The hard, deep work we don't want to do, so we give ourselves the busy work that's a lot of tasks that we can check off. But that's not the work that matters. It's the hard work. It's the deep work. It's the connecting with your people. It's the really going deep and understanding your people. It's the creating the great content that people want. It's the, really kind of like nailing your message and dialing it in a deep way. Those are the things that are going to move your business forward. So you would be much better off posting less often on social media and doing that work and making sure that you actually know what your people want to hear. That's why, I have a thriving business. I have I think as I'm recording this, 1,700 Instagram followers. But that's okay. I don't worry about that because I worry about the people who are in my world and I serve the heck out of them and they buy because I do the effective thing. I'm effective. I do the deep work. I don't worry about the superficial stuff. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. Focus on being effective, not being efficient. So that's my call to action today. I want you to look over the things you're doing and be honest with yourself and stop doing the things that aren't moving the ball forward so you have more time to focus on the things that actually do matter. That's it for this episode and that of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'll be back again next week with 2 more episodes. But in the meantime, keep working to build the badass business of your dreams. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.